Today's subject is the subject of CHODOSH or YOSHON. I'm not sure what the subject. What do we call it? CHODOSH. Okay. CHODOSH. Are you makbir on YOSHON? Right. That's what you say. Right. The subject is CHODOSH, and the question: are you makbir on YOSHON? So go figure. All right. Nothing like a nice Jewish way of dealing with things. So, just a piece of background. Klal Yisrael in general was very makel on this halacha throughout all the generations. I'm going to read a story over here which I came across in a sefer called Makel Yaakov on Makis. This fellow was a great Lithuanian rabbi in his prime. When he was a yeshiva bocher, he learned in Ponovich, not Rav Yosef Kahneman or Bitzel Ponovich. You know, the Ponovich Rov, when I say the real Ponovich Rov, means the one. No, he was also, but he was a generation later. The original Ponovich Rov, and he learned by him. He learned by the Talzer Shiva, and he writes the following story. I would like to read this story because I'm telling you something which people in 20 years will deny was history. So I'm saying it to you right now, so you should have a makel to hit people over the head with. Midi dabra al admeina Rabbi Yitzhak Ponovitcher niskarti b'maisa noira oidoisov. Now it happens to be, in preparation for this week's piece, which I wrote on the Parsha, I came across a small excerpt of this piece. And I said, wow, I even know where this piece is found in full. And in preparation for this year, I actually got it. Okay? He had to go to Petersburg for some kind of a Sifa of Gedali Hador, for some kind of a rabbinical conference that get to discuss different inyanim for the tzibor, etc. And at that time, there was no secondary rabbi in Ponovich. Ubikesh, the Ponovich Rabbi many v'od ravecha mitoshvei Ponovich, ushmo binyamin Ashkenazi, sheneshav yachva beis harav Ponovich Rav. We should sit and paskin the questions in his absence. Where are the stand-ins? Okay. B'chol yom v'yom kechamisha shvuos koydem Pesach. This took place from before Purim till Pesach time. Lahoiros b'shalis iser v'hetim l'dim dinei Torah l'sader git and kedushin and kedom. We had to do the rabbi's job. V'kiyamti es bakashosai b'kovet. And we heard in the newspapers that the Ponovich Rav was the life of the conference. B'choitz chamisha shvuos bar Ponovich Rav to his house. This is fascinating. V'yovo habaisa u'matz ha'isar yoshem beis harav. We found us sitting there. V'lo amar lanu davar. He did not say hello, not say anything to us. Rak milim halalu. Omer b'knasul rabayis. He said when he walked into the house to his wife, Ani rotze lechol. Guy was away for 5 weeks. Nothing doing. Food. Food. Now we're not talking about a slouch, a person who was engrossed in eating, but food. That's what he said. V'ochal ubirach birkas hamazon b'kol rom kedarkoi. V'achar kach nisas beis harav v'shol b'sholmenu. Then he took notice of us and asked what's going on. V'amar lano al sumas leiv lezeh shamarti b'nasasi lebeis harabanos harir tzolechol. Don't take it to heart, that which I told my wife. Food. V'zeh loshen haTorah. Ani nizar milechol chodosh. I'm makpid on chodosh. Ubeir Peterburg lo haya kemach yoshon. I couldn't find any kemach yoshon. V'lochen lo haya li malechol kemat b'chol eitz yisi sheichem bePeterburg. Therefore, I was starving. It's an interesting story. Umamela imein kemach ein shena kechamisha shvuos. It's going out of my mind. V'sha'alti la'admori, and I asked my Rebbe. You know, he came home, he had to get himself acclimated, so he had to eat. So I asked the question, this is what I call it Avrohom Baruch Zachariash question. Only certain people would ask this kind of question. V'sha'alti, to the Ponovitch Rav, what did Reb Chaim Brisker and Rameir Simcha, what did they eat? They were also at the meeting. We read in the newspapers. They were frummers. They for sure were makbid. Okay? What do you think the answer is? No. Way more interesting than that. V'zeu tshivosai elai. Hagoin Mibrisk had a balabayas in Praterburg that he had a deal going with the guy to have for him kemach yoshon from wherever he came. He had a supplier. Reb Chaim had a supplier always in advance. He was not worried about it. V'hagoin Midvinsk and the Or Sameach hoyelo tanai be'es hakabola. When he decided to be makbid on chodosh, he made a tanai sheyishmar iser chodosh rak be'iroi. Only when he's in Dvinsk, avol loy be'ir acheres. And when he's traveling, he's not going to do that chumrah. Avol ani lo yisnesi b'shas hakabola shum tanai. When I decided to be makbid on chodosh, I didn't put in any postscripts. So now, you want to know what was it like? In order to know, you speak about what was it like, how important was it to be meko, to not eat, I don't know, I get confused, to abstain from the question of chodosh. Okay, I guess that's a good way of saying it. Now here is the most moving part of the story. And when I gave a hesped on the Ponovitch Rav in the base Medrash Hagadol in Ponovitch, I said over this story from the Bima. And at that time, Rabbi Avrohom, the mashgiach from Mir, was there. V'nisragesh kol kach me'maisa zu, and he was so moved by this maisa, is zolga ein of demos. And he cried over the tzidkis of the Ponovitch Rav, v'omar chaval al da'av v'lo mishtachim. So now, I'm not sure what I said over in this story, but it's giving you a picture of how great a sacrifice it would be for a person to be makbid on the question of chodosh. Okay, that's the purpose of this. So now we understand that in order, the Hamoin Am, we're not capable, practically we're not capable. It's not like, Shabbat Makir Chol V'Yisol, what am I going to do without my Kit Kat? There are greater questions in the world out there than that. There are other foods that are of importance. But I'm saying, but that wasn't the question. The question was, what am I going to eat? Tachlis, what am I going to eat? I'm not going to have any food to eat. This was a question of going insane from lack of food or not. Just you have to understand the tzorech. That's the reason why I'm saying over to understand the tzorech of the question.
It says there also you couldn't sleep.
So that's and he wasn't a person that was busy eating. He wasn't what they call a foodie, right? He wasn't a foodie. So this is what's called a necessary kula. I did not yet make a halachic statement. You have to understand when we're going to learn the halacha, when you're going to see how the Rabbanan went to great lengths to be mekel, you have to understand the tzorech that there was. Nevertheless, that was the minig, and we're going to learn a Mishnah Berurah, and this Mishnah Berurah will give you a fascinating new way of looking at things, I believe. Okay? But this is a piece, notes, I think the story I think is important for, I didn't say it as entertainment. Halacha. Osar lechol chodosh. Af bizman hazeh. Tov pei tes yud. I see that I skipped the halacha. All right, you know what? Lev, you're right. I didn't do halacha tes. I forgot. I had in mind to do it when we started. When we finish this one, we'll go back and do it. There's some interesting things there too. It was prepared. I just this was on my mind. Also lechol chodosh af bizman hazeh ben lechem ben koli ben carmel. It doesn't make any difference how it was prepared. All ways of preparation are aser. Atchilas lel yuches benisan, u'be'et Yisrael atchilas lel yudzayim benisan. Until Yom Hanaf aser. Now, I'd just like to mention something which I saw in passing, if I'm not mistaken, from Rabbi Wasserman. Why is Yom Hanaf aser? Because maybe Mashiach is going to come. And even though, really, it should be mutter from the beginning of the day. But we're so bent on believing Mashiach is going to come, and if he's going to come to bring the Omer, we don't want to retroactively be over. Fascinating. All right. Anyways, that's what the halacha is. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Also lechol chodosh, hainu tfuah shenishash achar tez zayin nisan, shu zman hakrovas ha'omer. If it has to be that it was already planted when the korban omer was brought, in order for the omer to be materit. Vayot sham shechodosh shayach rak b'chamishes minim, chitim soin kusvin shibol shul v'shifon. Af bezman hazeh. Now there are many mitzvahs that are only bisman like Shemitah is only bisman that Klal Yisrael is Klal Yisrael is there. There's some mitzvahs that are only in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. We're going to see all of these questions are questions about Chodosh. So we're going to start with the Mishnah Berurah's initial approach. So it says Lechem v'kol v'kamal mazeh b'chol moshmo seichem. Now, if I be a Tziyoni, I would say, how does this say anything about Chutz La'aretz? Jews only live in Eretz Yisrael, right? But yet, Chazal said, B'chol Moshe Sechem is coming to include those who live in Chutz La'aretz. The Torah recognizes that there are Jews who live in Chutz La'aretz. Okay? Okay, Mashra Mizeh, Da'af B'chutz La'aretz Noig Iser Ad Etzem HaYoim. V'hainu Yoim Avos HaKarben, that it's 10 Zayim Nisan. We add on another day. V'hinei, v'yir adei ha'kosav Ramah heter chodosh, davi sveik sveika. Sveik sveika means you have a suffix and a suffix. Now, this morning I gave a shir here about Hilchos Sakana, and one of the things which I wanted to speak about, but usually you don't speak about what you want to speak about, you get caught in other things, is a fascinating question. In Sakana, is a sveik sveika mutter? Understand the question? I'm not sure I understand the question, but the question revolves around there are mechanisms to be matir certain things in Isurim, and the question is, do those same things apply in Sakana? For instance, just get off my chest what I was speaking about this, what I was supposed to speak about this morning, right? There's a halacha, you're not mevatel Isser. There's an Isser to be mevatel Isser. Let's say I have sakana. Can I be mevatel it? What? No. Just because I like it. I have some fish fell into my cholent, so I'll put some more water in, and now I'll be mevatel b'shisha. So if it was meat milk that fell into my cholent, I'll be mevatel Isser. What about sakana? Is sakana Isser? Is sakana Isser? Or it's just that you don't let eat it? So if I'm mevatel it, am I mevatel in Isser? Or am I just making the sakana non-potent? I'm taking away the Isser. I'm taking away the sakana. There's no Isser. Is there an Isser? So this is actually a question of Kiveger about this, some cipher about this. But here we have Sveik Sveika is a question of I have a suffix, and on the tzad that there's a question, there's another reason to say that it could be it's okay. In other words, let's say I have a suffix if a piece of trephis fell into my pot, and then that pot got mixed into another two pots. So now I'm going to eat my meat from a pot. How many reasons do I have to say that it's mutter? two. You're not very good at math. One, maybe nothing fell in. And even if it fell in, maybe it's not in this pot. Right? So I have two reasons. That's an idea like a sveik. I have two reasons to say that it's okay. So here too, I have two reasons to say that it's not chodesh. One, maybe it's from last year, and it's not chodesh. And two, even if it's from this year, maybe it's from before it was nishrash. It was nishrash before the armor was brought. So Rabbi Akiva already asked a question, why isn't that the same question twice? And there's an answer given for that question. But anyways, there's a sveika, and because there's a sveika, so then we allow it to be done. That's one reason. Now here we live today in a time which is very different than 50 years ago. We know a lot of information that we didn't know 50 years ago. Things are trackable. Now, how trackable are things really? I want to share with you a question, and you tell me. I go into a store in center of Tel Aviv, and I buy Cheerios. Okay? Cheerios are undisputably chametz. Now that store in Tel Aviv says that they sold their chametz. Does that help me? What does it help me with?
You're allowed to trust a Jewish person when they say that something's kosher.
Did he say it's kosher?
No, he said it's not.
What did he say?
He said the chametz.
Which chametz? The chametz that was in his possession on the 14th day of Nisan. If he's a good businessman, by Vav Iyar, he restocked. So because he sold his chametz, does that mean that his supplier sold his chametz? So I believe this. I believe the sign. Does it help me? Now, let's say the guy has two suppliers. Is it trackable? I can't tell you for sure, but I'm pretty sure that nowadays you could tell every single stop that this thing made along the way. You could probably, he has two suppliers, but still there's some kind of a code, and this code went to one supplier. Nowadays, I don't know that I know what I'm saying, but I'm sure that what I'm saying is true. That what? Even the guy has many suppliers, we could find out which lot came from which thing, right? Is that called that it's trackable? Halacha recognizes that a certain amount of misurbal, its complications, make things that are already called untrackable. How much do I have to be able to know for sure in order for me to say that it's a suffix? Or how much do I have to know in order to say I'm mechuyev to track it? So in general, I'll just say most of the poskim are of the opinion that you're not mechuyev to track it, and there's a variety of reasons why, that you're allowed to assume that the supplier sold his chametz, or he got, or it's from the old stock. You're not mechuyev to check it out. You want to know if there are people that are machmer? La'olam yesh. Okay, that's the bottom line. But this is a practical application. Now, when I go, it's like to make a statement, I go to America and I get the list. And it tells me what the cutoff date is and when the new crop comes. Does that tell me that the food that I am eating is CHODOSH? No. All that it tells you is that it's not Vadai YOSHON. In other words, there's a date, a packaging date. All the earliest time that oats, which happens to be the first one that comes onto the market, there are no new oats on the market until August something. So if you buy anything of oats after August something, you have to be choishish that it's chodosh. Does it mean that it's chodosh? What?
No.
No. It means it's a suffix chodosh. If I bought anything that the packaging date was before August something, it's Vada Yoshin. So there is no hashkacha that tells you that something is chodosh. You still have a suffix. Is it clear what I just said? Okay, it's
After that packaging thing, it still might be Yoshan, it still might be CHODOSH, you don't know. But
Right.
it might be CHODOSH.
Right. So now you have a suffix. So it's not that the halacha didn't really change. Now that you could know, you can't know. You just know when there's no question. But there's no thing that's telling you what there is. Now I would like to, this, what I'm saying right now is what many poskim say. I would like to challenge that. I could find out if it's CHODOSH or not. I'll call Lev Seltzer, and I'll tell Lev Seltzer, this was packaged on this and this date. Find out who their supplier was, where they got their wheat from. There's no, right? It's today as opposed to 50 years ago. I believe that I could know. And again, I'm not telling you this as a psak, but I believe that I could know. Okay?
You don't think that the list would have been machmir if you could know?
No.
Because they just want me Yoshan.
Right. Right. That's not the point. Their point.
Why is the Rav interested to know?
No. So the question is it called now that I have a suffix? Do I have a suffix? I'm right now in December, and the packaging date is in October. I'm just lazy. What's the status of my lack of information? 50 years ago, it was a suffix. Today, we can pull the file, so to speak, and find out. Yet, I think that most of the poskim lean towards the fact that it's still called a suffix, and I'm not going to get involved in how all that works. But the bottom line is that it's a question whether it's still called a suffix. Now, yes?
I heard that the produce made in Israel, like the Israeli products, it's not a problem of Chadash here.
Okay.
Just things brought in from overseas.
This is for sure true. I received a letter from the Rabbanut about 15 years ago. And I'm going to tell you what the Rabbanut wrote to me. Okay? What I'm saying right now makes absolutely no sense. But nevertheless, this is their policy. I've heard that since then they've changed their policy, that they're more machmir. The Rabbanut will not give a hechsher on anything which has a question of CHODOSH. If, let's say, the Rabbanut rubber stamp something with an OU on it. In other words, OU they consider it a reliable hechsher, and it gets a stamp, be sure. What does it say on the stamp? You know what I'm talking about. What? But it says be sure Rabbanut Rashi or something like that. Now, if the OU will use something that could be CHODOSH, the Rabbanut doesn't care. And they'll underwrite it, even though they would never give a hechsher on it, even though they know that the OU does. It's called a double standard in English, right? Because they themselves won't give a hechsher on it, but they will accept the hechsher on something which has it. Now, I'd just like to share with you some words from a sefer called Minhagei Eretz Yisrael, written by somebody Gellis about 70 years ago. And then I will say over something from one of the statesmen of this country. And then perhaps I'll tell you what Rabbi Yasha said. Just a fascinating sefer Minhagei Eretz Yisrael on the question of what is the Minhagei Eretz Yisrael on CHODOSH. He says there is no minhag, because there is no such thing as summer wheat here. There is only one season, and it's all mutter. Therefore, the question doesn't exist. Okay, so there is no minhag. One of the statesmen of this country in the 1950s, when there was a drought, so they said to him, "There's going to be a famine." He said, "Why? It's raining in the United States." Where does the wheat of manufacturing companies in Israel come from? Over 90% comes from Chutz La'aretz. In other words, For there to be a drought in Delaware, should be mispalo, you understand? But if there's in the Hermon, that's not nothing to worry about. You can always, this is a technical thing. Echshahu, I'm just going to say, this is a lot of fascinating information. Rabbi Yasher's opinion is that the minhag in Eretz Yisrael is to be makben chodesh. I know that that's not necessarily the opinion of the Eid HaChareidis. I don't want to get involved in that particular question, but this has a great halachic ramification. All of us here live in Eretz Yisrael, and that means that we're mechuyev to accept all the chumras that are accepted in Eretz Yisrael. If the halacha is like Rabbi Yashiv, that the minhag in Eretz Yisrael is to be machmer on chodosh, anyone who goes to America in the winter is not allowed to eat what they ate beforehand. No more entenmann's. It's all over. Okay? It's all over because it's a suffix chodosh and you're machmer. What do you mean I'm machmer? All the years I lived in America for 50 years and I was mekel. Bye bye. You made how many days yontif do you hold? 1.
Rabbi Yashiv has also said that we're machmer on Sefiras.
The question is always, everybody's machmer on Badai, more or less. We'll soon see. So this has great nafkamina, and this is for people who are going to America. But this is a question which people should be aware of. It's not so simple if you live here. When you go back to the United States, that you can be mekel, even though you were mekel when you lived in the United States. All right. Now, all right. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah over here. Now, when is it called? I just want to make something clear. When is it called that you have a suffix that maybe it's chodosh? Do you think that in Petersburg there was a suffix, or it was vadai? In other words, we'll read a little bit further on and we'll find out. In this country, we know every single tree that's planted, every single year. It's all recorded. I don't know if you're aware of that. Every single tree that's planted, the fruit tree is planted, and it's recorded in the Ministry for Agriculture. And there's no guessing. We know. All right? So now, let's see what it's... That's for Orla. We know. No, we know. It's not a guess. We assume that there's this amount of new crops. Everything, it's pretty accurate. Let's put it that way. The Medinas Poilin, Ein lahakil, Kiyim bechitin v'shifon. Those two species, chitin and shifon. Deruba, nizroi b'chodesh cheshvan. The vast majority are planted in cheshvan. V'shach b'hem chodosh. So there's no reason to be machmer in Poland on these things. You could assume that there's no question. These other minim, rubam ukemat kulam nizroim achar Pesach. Different crops grow at different seasons, and therefore they harness the land for the crops that'll grow the best at that time. So there's no question about chitim, and there's almost no question about sa'arin the other way, that it's aser. Here it's vadai mutter, here it's vadai aser, even though it's the same halacha. The question is this called that you have a suffix? That's the question which we're discussing. Okay? V'gam ein rogel lahavi sham tfu mimedinas acheres ve'ein lahakel bom. We have no right to make on those things. When we call makom, even though I just made it clear that there's no strong footing to be makom, they didn't seem to come to my Mishnah Berurah here. It's very difficult to do it. Al mixas harishayim shesabim shchadish b'chutz la'aretz eina ala midivrei seifrim shegazum mishum eretz Yisrael. But Russia, where most of or the Ukraine, where most of the grain comes from in the world, I think they're the third largest grain suppliers in the world. They were before the war in the Ukraine. I don't know exactly. We're all still alive, so I don't know exactly what happened since then. Probably they do it in China now with some plastic you're eating. Anyways, now, I will just share with you a fascinating thought. There's a machlokes achronim if you bring in grain from Chutz La'aretz and you make it into bread in Eretz Yisrael, could very well be that it becomes mechuyev midaraisa in Chodesh. So this is a very complicated halacha. Af she'ei b'yadeinu limchos b'yad hamakilim mikol mokom kol bal nefesh lo yismach al haterim halalu v'yachmir la'atzmoi b'chol ma she'ef shaloi. What does that mean? What does that mean? So the question is, does that mean I can't buy crackers? I know I could go to the kosher bakery and buy YOSHON bread, but I go to the supermarket and buy tea biscuits that's from some goyish company. You could live without tea biscuits, kacha shamati, right? What's called kobash afshaloi? Why? Ki harbe gedayli rishayim hu iser daraisa b'chol gavnei. So therefore, it's a very serious thing, and one should really look to be machmir with that one. That is not true. There is great amount of commerce that's done from far away. They have CHODOSH more than YOSHON. So you have to know what the shipping rates are, where the wheat is moving around to know if you have a real suffix, you don't have a real suffix. Now, this piece of Mishnah Berurah was inserted just so I should feel good, because on Friday night we're learning the halachas of Zeya and things which come out, juices that come out of fruits, if they have the same halachas as the fruit itself. Well, the inyan shecher, okay? Because there are those that are mekel on shecher. The Chok Yankov brings those that are mekel on shecher, because it's not the wheat itself, it's only a byproduct of the wheat, and therefore one can be mekel, and he disagrees with this idea, and this has to do with the subject which we discussed on Friday night. When do we say that it's the thing itself, or when do we say it's something else? But Echshahu, I'll just tell you, those who are machmirim never drink beer, kamat. Because beer has always one of two problems. Either it was chametz shenim kal akum, or it's chodosh. So, right. And there are those people who don't buy things that were sold to a goy. Right? Those who are machmer. Right? That's not what I say, that you don't say you have to have that chumrah. I myself don't do that chumrah. But there are many people who have that chumrah. If you're makbid not to do that. So if you live in Tallahassee, it's not a problem. You can go to the local bar and buy a beer. But in Ramat Beit Shemesh, I would imagine all the beer stores are owned by Jews. I don't know.
Suppliers for sure.
Yeah, okay, I don't know. They don't have them coming from like Jordan or something like that. I don't know, but I would assume that they're all owned by Jews. Okay, all right. Ben Kali, Ben Kar. Okay, all these things, discuss what they are. Because of Achorim, the Afan is Har Mechodesh.
At the end of the day, this that it became more in style to be Makbar and Chodesh. That's good. Just that we have the Hilchos and all the pizza stores in Brooklyn are now Makbar and Chodesh.
It's for sure good. Nobody's arguing that's for sure good. But the question, that makes it.
Roy the Hachmar, it's not just a.
I will. The fellow who made the revolution on Chodesh was a fellow by the name of Herman. He lives in Muncie. And before he made his revolution, he went to speak to all of the Gedolim. If I'm not mistaken, not only in America, also in Eretz Yisrael. And his son, who used to be a good friend of mine till he moved away, told me that his father spoke to all the Gedolei Yisrael about this, if he should make this project. And they all encouraged him to make it. And they all said, however, you should make a evolution, not a revolution. In other words, when I was growing up in Detroit, Michigan, we knew that there were things in New York, that there were people that were Machmir and Yoshon. And 15 years ago, I was in Detroit, and in the supermarket, the same city, there's the Yoshon section. I don't know 100% what I'm saying is true, but I believe any Mahadran Hechsher in America today is Makbil and Yoshon. Is that? Now this is a big statement because Chassidim are not Makbil and Yoshon, but I think that they've been pushed by the needs of the community to become Makbil. All right, now. There's
make an evolution and not a revolution.
Means that you don't say this is what you have to do and you have mechuyev to because it's not a shas adchak. They're offering it, and people will eventually catch on, and it'll just happen by itself. Don't make it. This is not something.
Just recently in Brooklyn, almost every hechsher was.
I would just like to make the following statement. About 15 years ago, after Purim, on Friday morning, I got 3 phone calls from America. The people that were makbid on Yoshon, there are like 2 or 3 bakeries that supply the industrial challahs for Shabbos, that are selling, tens of thousands of loaves of challah. They found an infestation of worms in the bread, and it became questionable if all of the challahs are usher to be eaten because of the infestation. And it seems that the problem came about because it's Yoshon. Because it's old and wasn't kept in a sterile enough environment, so we went from something which has a heter to many possible Isurim Daraisa. Now I didn't say what to do, but I'm just saying that one wants to be machmer. You should be aware that there's an awareness you have to make sure that you don't fall into other Isurim. Now the Mishnah Berurah, I guess we're not going to have time to do the whole Mishnah Berurah. He goes on a rampage that one should be machmer as much as he can, and then he wraps it up. וגם מן האחרונים המקים לא רצו להקל אלא בספק ולא בוודאי, וגם בשולחן ערוך קם וירדה לא יססמו הפוסקים שהוא דרייסה וכל גבני, וגם הרבה מן האחרונים תפסו כן עיקר, על כן ודאי ראוי ונכון לחוש לכל זה ולפרש על כל פנים מן הוודאי חודש. One should try to be as machmer as he can, ומי שרוצה לב על זה יוכל להשיג גם בחורף מינים אלו מצוות ישנה. If you really try hard, you should be able to avoid the Isser. Now, I just would like to say, on these halachas, there is a fascinating Magen Avrohom, which is a maramokom in general kashrus. Makbid an chodosh, let's say. And I come to your house, and your wife wants to make me some food. and she wants to use her pot that she makes spaghetti in. And the spaghetti that she uses is Safek Chodosh. May I eat from your pots, or because I'm makbid on Chodosh, your pots are treif? For me, not for you. Okay? Now this question has many ramifications to it. In short, the Magen Avrohom says that one does not have to be worried about the blias of kalim from Chodosh, and it makes different certain things if it's ben yom or not ben yom. But just because one holds that it's usher, the gabe kalim or gabe other things, people are making. This idea exists in America with people with cholav stam. There are many people who are makbid cholav yisrael, but they'll use kalim of people that cholav stam. This is one of the places where this is mentioned in the place. Okay, thank you.